And one of your sayings that you love using for March Madness and that you like for college baseball as well is that you can't get worse and win the title. And as we were going to break, I was looking at some of the teams and I was like, yeah, we do have some of those teams this year. Certainly LSU, certainly Wake Forest. Arkansas, I remember being really good last year. I don't know if they're worse this year, possibly. Clemson, I know, is really good. Last year, certainly Florida obviously got worse as well. So you do have a fair share of teams that fit that this year that I'm sure you're looking forward to fading. And especially in their regionals, you can get some good prices on some of these other teams with some of these teams that you're looking to fade.
Yeah, and just to quantify this a little bit, so title first, it's basically no historical precedent for being measurably worse. So we can argue about what that means. You can use certain publicly available rankings. You can use statistics, like some of the core categories being worse at them year over year. There's basically no historical precedent for being worse in winning, as in winning the College World Series, not winning a game, not winning 3 games. There's basically no historical precedent for that being true. In this way, it works a lot like both college football and college basketball, which makes a lot of sense. These are sports that have like waves of classes of athletes that move through the school, and most of these sports are built on upward trajectory and like kind of arcing like a wave that ends up cresting with a really deep run in the postseason and a really strong performance. And then after that, things crash a little bit and it takes time for that wave to come back up again, unless you're one of the absolute best of the best teams, in which case you're just at the top all the time. And that's not what we're talking about either. Staying the same is okay too. Like if you're already the best, you can just be the best again. That's okay. UConn last 2 years would be a pretty good example. Yes, they were a little bit better this past year than they were the year before from like an overall metric standpoint. But basically it was like they were awesome and then they were awesome again. And so it's totally okay. You don't have to be better. You just can't be like you don't want to bet off of last year's success is a good way to think about it. And this comes through both in the title, which as I just mentioned, like you really don't want teams that are much worse than they were the previous year. There isn't basically any historical precedent for any of those teams winning the tournament, for winning the College World Series. But this also comes across, PJ, this is the part that I thought was very interesting, comes across also in these supers and just to make Omaha kind of markets or the way we think about teams. So to make it really easy for everybody to understand, just like I could use like rankings and stuff and like we'll go to this website. No, it's really easy. Put the teams into 4 buckets. Nationally seeded, so 1 to 16, 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed. And I guess like did not qualify the previous year would be another bucket because you have to be able to show improvement. And all you do is just what kind of seed were they before? Were they nationally seeded? Were they a 2? Were they a 3? Were they a 4? Or did they not make it? And this year, are they better? Like moved up a bucket? Moved up a tier? Are they the same? Or did they go down? Like they were a nationally seeded team and now they're a 3. Or now they're a 4, or like whatever they were, now they're a 2. And what you figure out is that basically like only like one of these kind of teams ends up making the supers, maybe 2 sometimes, some years 3, some years 0, but like not a lot. And they frequently represent this group of brand name teams that holds a lot of value in the way the betting markets work. So here are some teams this year that fit that description. Pete, I mean, your eye is immediate, like people have already thought of a couple, and Pete, you did too when you were looking at the odds board, but like Wake Forest is much worse, and they are seeded worse than they were the year before. LSU is seeded worse than they were the year before. Texas is seeded worse than they were the year before. Oregon, who had a really surprising run, lost to Oral Roberts. They're seeded worse than they were the year before. Florida, the national runner-up, is seeded. Florida probably shouldn't have even made the tournament if you trust people that watch the sport. They made the tournament. They're in Oklahoma State's regional. They're seeded much worse than they were the previous year. South Carolina, who lost to Florida in the Super last year, they're seeded worse than they were the year before. Alabama, PJ's team, who had a really good run last year, they're seeded worse than they were the year before. Vanderbilt, like another SEC team, like I think I'm missing maybe Indiana State, who was a seeded team last year, nationally seeded. Like I just gave you like 10, 12 teams. History kind of says like on average, it could be less, it could be a little more. Maybe one of these wins the region, like much less, like goes really deep, wins the tournament. One of my arguments in college sports is always like you don't get worse and then win. like win the championship. Like it's usually an upward, or like you're usually getting better and better and better in it, or you stay the same because you're Alabama in college football or something and you win. But it's not like, man, last year was like our special year, but this year we win the title. Like it just doesn't really happen that way. And so you listen, because I come in this week and I listen to a lot of the stuff, and it's like, is Wake finally back and they're going to play Tennessee in the Super Regional? LSU, Wake, the number one overall seed last year, is LSU like finally hot again and they're going to win this tournament, right? Like Alabama and South Carolina are seeded worse than they were last year. Florida made the tournament and is going to draw interest as a result of just making the tournament. Like, I feel like I want to be dead set on basically being against all of the teams that are worse than they were the year before, where last year was the special season. Do you share that opinion?
And compared to last season, I mean, I would take Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts made the tournament, but they're also 289th in the RPI. There's only like 305 teams, but they're in this tournament from winning the Summit. So I think you're right. I think you want teams that are ascending and definitely not descending. And, a name that you threw out there was LSU. This is a team that caught fire. They have never had odds less than 20-1 the entire season, and they were sub 500 for 75% of the season. I think I tweeted out this weekend, they're the 11th seed in their conference tournament, and they have 14-1 odds to win the national title. That's the kind of team that you want to be betting on. The offense has gotten extremely hot, and they have maybe not Paul Skeens anymore, but they at least have four pitchers they can put out on the mound that have experience from pitching in Omaha last year all the way and winning the championship. So they have it in experience. They have it. They're hot. And, this is going to be a hell of a fun regional, seeing LSU be a road team and getting all those fans from Baton Rouge to travel over North Carolina is going to be a ton of fun.
So obviously Jason Tatum's the favorite at -110, best player on the best team. And then Luka, who's the best player in the series, he is +230, I believe, +250, depending on where you want to look. That was the conversation I was having on the show yesterday with Pat Boyle, who was filling in, which you get a ton in these championship games. Obviously, there was that conversation with Purdy and San Francisco and Mahomes and the Chiefs when we were talking about the Super Bowl. It's, if you like a team, do you just bet the best player? Do you just bet the quarterback to win MVP and get yourself a higher price? It's interesting, though, Ken, especially if you like Boston, just because obviously you can make a case for a number of different players. I know we only have a minute left before we go to break, but I want your thoughts on, do you think Jaylen Brown winning Eastern Conference Finals MVP, does that change how you would bet this market? Whereas if Tatum would have won it, you might have had a different thought, or do you just, not even consider it going to the finals?
If there's one, so again, more than a week to go. This is the opening salvo here. If there's one market that just looks funny to me, I don't think Tatum's price is correct, and I think he's much more likely to win Finals MVP than this price. I just think he's much more likely. We just had a series where everything you would look for in a series to get a wacky outcome happened. The series was a total mismatch, so the star didn't have to matter. The series went the shortest possible number of games, so the star didn't have to do as much, and there were fewer games for the averages to kind of even themselves out and for the best player to play better. Jaylen Brown had by far the most impactful moment in the series, the three-pointer in game one. And like all of these things all happened in the same series, and he won by a vote. That actually bolstered, I think, my idea that like I actually think Tatum's going to win Finals MVP a lot of the time. All that had to happen, and he still almost won? Then like, what happens if it just goes normal? Then he's definitely going to win.
Luka's probably going to be a popular pick for MVP. Ken and I were having that discussion earlier. I think if you like Dallas to win, maybe you just bet Luka to win MVP. Are you in the same mindset? Like, as somebody who likes Dallas, do you think there's a chance that Kyrie could win it, PJ Washington could win it, one of these other guys? Or do you think maybe if you like Dallas to win, you could bet Luka to win MVP as well?
Yeah, I would go with Luka for now. I mean, I really like the Mavs to win, so I'm going to go with Luka. And I think, it's a very much story-ridden league with these type of awards, and Luka winning Finals MVP would be huge. We've seen Kyrie do his thing in the finals back in the mid-2010s in 2016, and everyone knows he can do that. But having Luka, he's not really up-and-comer anymore. He's going to probably be the face of the NBA for the next 5 to 10 years if he keeps this up. Him winning Finals MVP would be huge, and I just don't see the Mavs winning a series without him playing his best basketball. I mean, he's playing tremendous basketball right now, and he's not 100%, clearly not 100%. He's tired. He's fighting through some injuries. So if they do win tonight and he gets a whole week off to remedy anything that's hurting him, I don't see him not winning Finals MVP if the Mavs are able to win this series. Kyrie is, I think, right now in his career, he's more than happy playing that Robin to Luka's Batman, and he's okay kind of playing that backup guy. And if they need him down the stretch, he's more than happy to take control. But I think he's more than happy to let Luka shine, do his thing, score 30, 35 plus points each game in a playoff series. And I'm happy to back a guy like that at plus money, plus 210, plus 220, whatever it is. I like Luka in that situation. If you like the Mavs, I would definitely do Luka.